Well, welcome back. Today, I am going to speak to the topic of why it is important for men to play the long game rather than the short game. Now, over the weekend, I was very fortunate in that I was hosted uh, by a few friends and we had a great time. We talked about several issues. One of them mentioned something during the conversation that I thought was a reminder of what we and what I am trying to do in these sessions, um, which is to encourage young men to recommend, uh, to, to suggest to young men that the long game always works out to be a lot more beneficial than the short game, and that if you can stay focused on your dreams and you can stay focused on your goals, once you arrive to your mid 30s, 35 and above, you will look back and realize how lucky you were not to have played the short game like most young men do, and how much more you can attract in terms of people, resources, opportunities, possibilities, uh, and lifestyles. Now, the friend of mine who hosted us at the weekend had recalled on his experience the day before at the birthday event that he attended, and he said to me uh, that he observed that a lot of the young men he met, that they were driving very, very, very expensive cars, dressed in very expensive clothes and designer wear and footwear that was extremely expensive. Now, let me start by saying that the person I'm referring to is much older than I am, and financially he's doing very, very well. Uh, and for him to be making such a statement, it must have been excessive. And he was puzzled, and he said to me, "What do you think?" And I said, uh, "That is nothing new. Right from when I was very young, and this goes back as long as time can tell, but in different forms. Men have been uh, conditioned in such a way that they realize that in the sexual marketplace, in the dating marketplace, women judge men based on a number of specific criteria. Usually, uh, it's based on the car you drive, it's based on how you dress, the shoes you wear, your belt, your sunglasses, your jackets. Everything is really physical. Everything is based on first impressions. And younger men, because we are so desperate to play the game as aggressively as others, we believe that we have to uh, dress in a certain way, present ourselves in a certain way for women to consider us as potential uh, dating mates. And so, society today, and I know this varies depending on geography, but society today has become uh, something of an art form. I refer to dating as the art of deceit. The young man really cannot afford a certain lifestyle, but he recognizes that in order for him to be accepted, he has to acquire such a lifestyle at the expense of his future. And so it didn't come as a surprise to me. I remember growing up, I was raised relatively poor. I was raised by two incredible parents, an amazing father, a remarkable mother. We was spiritually wealthy. Morally, I was raised with the right foundations, the right value system. We lacked for nothing in the area of what was necessary to construct the right foundations of life. Economically, sadly we didn't have much. And so I grew up having a respect for the value of money, but not having much, but also having a big dream. And I was encouraged to pursue that dream and not to be distracted by things in the present that were certainly not going to get me to where I wanted to be in the future. And so I went through my 20s and my 30s not playing the same game that most people played. It will surprise many people to know that there are certain things I never had in my 20s, or I was never interested in having in my 20s. For example, I was never into wearing designer labels. I grew up with the feeling of the body wears the clothes and not the other way around. So I focused on making my physique quite remarkable, and therefore whatever I wore, it was a statement, because the body was wearing the clothes and not the clothes the body. I never had exotic cars, not because I could not afford them, but more so because I always remembered my days of small beginnings. The respect for money was instilled in me, and it was important to save, to invest. And so I was never sidetracked in my 20s or my 30s, I never have been in my entire life, on some of the distractions that most young men face. Nonetheless, I have had friends, and this is a true statement. I had friends in my 20s who earned the same amount that I did. Some earned more, some earned less. Who drove remarkable machines, automobile machines. They dressed in the best attires. They went to the best restaurants. They dined in the best clubs. They spent so much money. It was rather embarrassing. To put it in context, I went to bars where I never paid to go into a bar. I never paid for bottles of champagne, and even on my birthday, I never spent money. I never wasted money in clubs buying champagne for people I didn't know, just for the sake of making people look at me in a different light. Now, my friends did differently. Not all of them, some of them, without exception. The people I have in mind at this specific period, all of the people that squandered, which is what they did, most of their money simply to be recognized by a woman, simply because they were looking for tail, simply because they wanted society to look at them in a certain way. With the exception, with no exception, none of them has turned out in their 30s or 40s to be independently wealthy, to be financially stable. And part of the reason for that was because the habit they created early days was something they have maintained even till today. Now, in today's session, what I'd like to do is reaffirm some of the things that I have said about staying focused on your dreams, playing the long game. Between 18 years and 35 years, every man has 18 long years or short years to sow the seeds of greatness, and to sow the seeds of success, and to sow the seeds of achievement and accomplishment in the right soil. There is nothing as poor as sowing the right seed in the wrong soil. You have a choice. My recommendation is that you do not settle. You do not settle for where you are. You do not let yourself be distracted by what's around you, but instead you should dedicate yourself almost by having a magnificent obsession of a great future. A future that compels you to invest about 95% of your time in your education, in your career, in your dreams, in your goals, and in that vision that you have for the future. Keep your eyes down and wait until age 35. Now, let me go back to what I started today's session with. Young men today, like in the past, are encouraged and influenced into choosing a different path to what they normally would, simply because in our intrinsic nature, something innate in men, there is a longing for a woman's admiration, affirmation, affection, understanding, and praise. Now, we crave that so much that we would sacrifice a better tomorrow for a few seconds, sometimes, for those of you who have stamina, for a few hours of intimacy and sex. Some will make that mistake, and that mistake will lead to, unfortunately, the creation of another life. And so suddenly you have your entire future, your entire dream aborted, simply because you've made one mistake. Now, I have said before that in your 20s, between 18 and 22, you have 5 years, and usually those are years dedicated for college. In those 5 years, when it comes to dating, because young people and young women have not come to the awareness of their value and the value of beauty, and that beauty is a currency that can be traded for anything they want. It's possible for you to be in your 18, 19, 20s, up until age 22, and you can date the most attractive woman on campus, a 9 or a 10, and that's great. The effort involved from a man's perspective is almost negligible. It's so small because both of you are still very young. From about 23, which is when you graduate, a man has to take a different path. 18 to 22, you should stay focused on your education. 95% of that time should be about you becoming your best. To graduate with a distinction, to graduate in the top of your class, to be the one that people look to when there is a problem that needs to be solved, whether academically or generally. And that requires about 95% of your time. Focus that on your education, because you never get a second chance to do that again. They might call you names, and that's great. Be the one who is boring. Dedicate 5% to play, which means you can still have your cake. 5% is enough time to have fun and not to be distracted from your intended goal. Now, from age 23 and above, that's when we start the countdown for men, because that's when you have the opportunity to make something of yourself. Now, usually, most men do not go past 23 or 24 without sacrificing their dreams. And here are some other reasons. You start college at 18 or 19 and you make something of yourself in the first 2 years, and you start dating someone. She's probably age 20, like you are, 2 years down. And she wants a future with you. Let's just assume in this case, you also want a future with her. You're still carried away with the love that both of you have for each other. At age 20, the woman is at her peak in terms of her sexual attraction or her sexual market value. She's also at the peak of her reproductive fertility value, what I call your RFV. So a woman at 20, in terms of the balance of power, she carries way more power and has much more to offer than a man who is 20. Personally, I think the 18 to 22 period should be for experimenting, for young people to fall in love and experience the puppy dog love and enjoy themselves and study and play around and have fun. Generally, for me, I don't see why women over 20, and certainly above 23, I don't see any reason why women should be dating men who are of the same age, because the balance of power is so skewed. A man has nothing to offer you except promises and potential. You, on the other hand, you have everything working for you, which means you should be looking to trade your beauty, your fertility, your youth for the best value. And that simply means dating someone much older, but someone who has the ability to make those resources, those opportunities available to you. There is no shame for women to do this. I think it's insane for a woman to trade her best years for potential. Some women date from 18 till 28 only to find out that the relationship has gone nowhere. She's wasted the entire 11 years of her peak potential on someone who is still developing his potential. But that's for women. Let me address men because that's my focus. I would recommend that you wait. Between 23, put your head down and keep working. Just keep working. The just reward for those who play the long game is usually immense. For many men, what they find is that once they actually graduate, between 23 and 24, they have nothing to offer, but they are still very interested in dating. The lady who is a 9 or a 10 has so many people who are interested in her. So she overlooks you, and like I said, rightly so. She overlooks you for someone who has more resources and someone who is closer to his potential than you are to your potential. To put this in context, if you're 23, you have between 23 and 35. That's when your potential is really manifested. That means you have a lot of years ahead of you, 13 long years ahead of you. The woman will be smarter to date a man who is roughly 29 when she is 23, because the man who is 29 has 6 years to get to his potential. You have 13 years to get to your potential. So men generally are faced with a dilemma. The girl of your dreams who is a 9 or a 10 in beauty does not accept your proposal at 23. So you settle for a woman who is a 7 or 8 and you get married. And what usually happens is a woman who is a 7 or 8 at 24 has more leverage than you do. She will get you to settle down. And in almost all instances that I have come across, the man sacrifices his dreams. As a matter of fact, he sacrifices his dreams because she wants him to sacrifice those dreams. She wants him to put the family first, to put her needs first, and to stay. Now, there's something I should say that I think most women might not find it fair, but it's been my observation. The younger you get married, intrinsically and instinctively in a woman's subconscious is the awareness, and let's assume both of you are 24 years old, there is an instinctive, intrinsic, subconscious awareness on her part that if you were to pursue your dreams, and if you were successful, and if that success came to you at age 36, she recognizes that you will be able to find more attractive, much younger versions like herself. Certainly, a woman does not want to lose you. A woman will happily settle for a life with you not achieving your potential, but with her remaining as what will be the price in the family. meaning her needs will always be met, the family will always come first, your dreams will come secondary. A woman will settle for that life, then the risk that you pursue your dreams as primacy and you achieve that dream at say 36. She recognizes at that point women who were younger, women who were much or who are much younger than she is, will throw themselves at your feet, which could cause you to be distracted, to lose focus on the family, or to lose focus on her. So, intrinsically and instinctively in a woman's nature, is that she wants you to limit your success, providing the limitation is connected to her being in your life and being first place in your life forever. And this is partly why I say to men, you should not be in a relationship with a woman or in any relationship between age 23 and 35. Those are the years you dedicate to study, to practice, to your career, to becoming wealthy, to developing a network of good, strong men around you and women who can help you achieve your dreams and goals. Now, interestingly, whilst this is a very hard concept to grasp, it might interest you to recognize that the women who are the most attractive during the period of your 20s, those who are the 8s and the 9s and the 10s, 70 to 80% of all those people in your 20s will end up unmarried by the time you turn 30. It's a fascinating thing that happens. 70 to 80% of the women who you believe were the most attractive when you were 22, 23, 24, by the time you turn 30, they will still be unmarried. 70 to 80% of them will end up and are presently on a lot of dating apps, Tinder, Bumble, and the likes. Chronically single. Why? Because they also wasted their youth. They did not cash in on their beauty at the right time. So at 30, most women, beauty expires. Generally, beauty starts to expire at age 30. Between 18 and 30, a woman has effectively 12 to 13 years to what I would call negotiate the best optimal long-term companion if she wants to be in a relationship. That is the best years for her to negotiate the best value in exchange for her beauty. The longer she waits, the less she's able to get. As soon as a woman approaches 30, she's gone past her expiration date. But the best before date, expiration date is perhaps the wrong phrase. Your best before date, the way you have milk, and they tell you best before this date, the next day you can have the milk, but the longer you wait, the more the milk has lost this sense of taste and becomes rather poisonous. The same thing applies with beauty. From 30, beauty starts to decline at a very, very rapid rate. Which is why my observation has been, if you were to go to Tinder, and if you were to go to Bumble, and if you go to a lot of dating sites, strangely, 70 to 80% of the women, obviously this varies, but generally are women who are either approaching 30, 29, 30, or those who are above 30, those in their 30s, early 30s, 33, 34, 35. These are women who wasted their youth, did not cash in, and are now desperate for relationships. They want to get married, they're looking for partners, they're looking to couple with a man and to make something of the remainder of their lives. The point I'm trying to make is this. If you wait, if you play the long game and you wait, at 35, you would find that now you do not have just the potential, that you have, in reality, you achieved something. You still have the potential for more, but now you've achieved something that you can use and something you can use as a negotiation a proposal. You have either resources, you have fame, you have some fortune, you have wealth, you have some level of influence, you've achieved part of your dreams, and therefore the balance of power switches in the opposite direction. You, the man, you have leverage now. Now you can negotiate. The cars and the lifestyle that you could not afford at 20, now you can afford such a lifestyle, which means that you can now afford to date a woman who is in her 20s, early 20s to mid 20s. You then have what I call a beautiful arrangement. The woman is still at the peak of her beauty, her youth, her fertility, and you are just at the beginning of the peak of your resources and your ability to provide. Both of you can now negotiate, I would say equally, in a way that allows the man to respect the woman and what she brings, and the woman to respect the man and what he is. If you wait till 35, the options open up for you. If you get into relationships too early, most of the time, all of the resources that are wasted on dates, that are wasted on gifts and drinks and meals and things that are not necessarily important, which could have been seeds for investing in your future, are lost. So between 18 and 35, it's best for men to simply hook up. Forget about dating in terms of being in a relationship. You should not be in a mono relationship. It has a way of draining you, sabotaging your dreams, causing you to think less selfishly about your future, which is something that should be avoided. Instead, you should focus on hook up as much as you want, which is partly why I suggest to young men from your 20s, 23, 24, you should be on Tinder. You shouldn't be dating women in the same age as you are. You should be dating the 9s and 10s from 10 years past. So go on Tinder and be dating women who are in their 30s and 35s, who 10 years ago would have been the 9s and 10s, but now, because they didn't cash in too early, are available for dating. You can have your needs met. It's a mutual exchange. They need company, you need sex, which would mean you do not have to invest any time. It's not a relationship. Only 5% of your time is invested in having your needs met, and the remaining 95% of your time is spent on yourself. Your dreams, your goals, your future, creating wealth, saving, investing, buy a house. Avoid things that appear to be assets, but are indeed liabilities. Now, there are good assets and there are bad assets. Just in the same way that there are good investments and there are poor investments. A car is a bad investment. It's also a liability. A house is a good investment. It's also a good asset. So rather than investing, which is what most young men believe, buying a car, a very expensive car in their 20s, and spending all the time and energy it takes to maintain a car that they cannot afford, you should have that money invested in a property, in the stock market. Have it saved. Let your money compound. Between 18 and 35, you have 18 long years to allow your money to compound. The money that would have been spent on dates, all of that money can go into investing in an index fund, where your money every month, you can calculate how much you normally would spend on dates, chasing all these silly women around who would never give you the honor of taking your last name, certainly not at that age, and rightly so, in my opinion. Tabulate all of the costs. Let's say you spend £200 on dates, and experiences every month. That is a lot of money. Have that £200 diversified. Have it, some of it put in maybe in the S&P 500 index fund. That is the United States. Have the balance spread between maybe the European index fund or the Asian index fund, or maybe a selected specific index fund like the NASDAQ. Let that money go into your future. Have it compound. The woman of your dreams, if you're age 24, the woman of your dreams is still very young. She might be, who knows, 14 or 15, still too young for you to be dating her. She will be ready sometime in your 30s. You have 18 years or less to get yourself ready for her. All you can do is let that money compound so that when you are ready and when she is ready, you have enough resources to make her experience a memorable experience. Like, I personally think that there should be one beneficiary of all that hard work, and that should be the woman who you call a wife. Sometime in the future, you will meet her. Save, invest, reinvest, and wait. Play the long game. Stop all these silly spending. Stop all the waste of money on the women and things and people who perhaps in 10 years you wouldn't remember. Now, here is, in conclusion, something that I have found to be interesting. In my 20s and in my 30s, I went on so many dates. Actually, before my 20s, as a teenager, I went on so many dates. I cannot tell you, and I have no recollection of any of those dates. Now, if I saw the women I dated, or I went on dates with, I don't know what the experience of those dates would be. It's such a long time. I did not get married to any of those women. So about 90% or 95% of the people you date from age 16 all the way up to age 35 will amount to nothing. There is one person eventually you will get to call a wife. She should not get the leftovers of all of those years of hard work. And my view is, keep investing, keep saving, focus on your dreams, study hard, work hard, build a foundation in preparation for that special woman. Indirectly, she gets to benefit from all of your hard work, but the main beneficiary is yourself, because not only can you now afford, in 35 and above, not only can you now afford the most attractive woman that you want, what you would also find is that at 35 and above, there's a level of maturity